Hello.
You know, often in this world, I get introduced to people. Thank goodness for the power of online magicalness. And I always get excited when I meet new people. But my friend, when I met you, I was just like you were just speaking my language. And I thought, how beautiful is it that someone takes their life and uses it in the transformation of love? So I am thrilled, Steph, to have you here today. Thank you for joining me for my Tiny Bits of Love series.
Thank you for inviting me in and using your wisdom and your platform to just double and amplify all the magic that you have. And I just love it. I just love it.
So would you introduce yourself to my audience and tell people who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Steph Lagana. I'm a former national security staffer. I like to lead with that because I've gone way over on the other side. Now I am a wide multi-dimensional channel, which means that I get messages for people and I work really heavily with the unseen, but I combine that with business strategy. So I help people step into their calling with lots of magic and heaps of ease and grace, because I know that I'm here to help other people remember what they came here to do. And usually when I meet people, it's that I'm helping, it's because I've woken up first. So I'm here for the people that feel their purpose in the world and feel the heartbeat of what's coming next. We're here to build something new, baby. Let's do it. Let's do it.
I love this so much for so many reasons, because I feel like both of our transformational journeys have, especially really figuring out how to go, because I was a lobbyist, right? Like you worked for national security, I worked for it as a lobbyist, and here we are channeling this beautiful and incredible, powerful magic to the world in service of other people and ourselves, right? Like it's this beautiful connective relationship with spirit and with our clients. And how did you make that transformation?
Yeah.
Like, were you kicking and screaming, or were you just like, yeah, why not?
I'm going to say kicking and screaming. I also just want to acknowledge that the power of being the bridge person, being able to be both and to have the credibility to talk with certain kinds of people, and also to have the practicality to keep your feet on the ground and connect with like really big sacred energy with the divine, and not like lose yourself, not levitate off the ground. I think when I first encountered some of this like spiritual, magical kind of conversations, there was a real lack of groundedness, and it's gotten so much better, just in the best possible way. There's more people who are bridge people, which, you know, I think of both of us as bridge people. Yeah. I'm going to say I went kicking and screaming. Like I had stepped on a whole bunch of Legos in succession, and I was just like filled with rage and anger and irritation. I would like to say that it was pretty, but like, I'm not going to rewrite that narrative. And I will tell you, I was skeptical as fuck. I remember being on this beautiful island in the Bahamas, and this person who was a retreat leader talking about this gorgeous, power crystals that were like underneath of the ocean that were related to Atlantis. And I had gone because I had this really weird experience talking about like sound healing and dolphins. And someone had done a journey for me, and they were like, oh, you need to do this. Freaked me the fuck out. One of the people that was on the retreat with me said, how do you know this? And I'm thinking, brother, you need to say that again, but like louder for all of us in the back. And she was like, well, sometimes you just know, and shit on it. If not, like 3 or 4 years later, I'm doing exactly the same thing. You know, the world can be kind of complex sometimes, and you can be both practical and deeply in the mix. And that's, I came kicking and screaming, and now I'm deeply in the pancake mix. Holy waffles.
Spiritual expansion while stepping on Legos and on fire by Steph and Missy.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that is so true. of so many of my clients. Like when I am working with people and they're like, and they ask that question, how do you know? And I'm like, I cannot articulate how you know. Like I can't. And I think this is the thing that really gets people stopped up is you just know. And it's so sometimes shocking and sometimes scary and sometimes the most ecstatic, beautiful, sensual experience. Like it can be so many different things. Like sometimes spirit comes in and I'm all, oh, really? That's the game we're playing right now. And then other times it's like, oh, but you never know what you're going to fucking get. And I think that's why people don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would be so different as if, you know, we were being handed a manual for like a dishwasher or something, like it was an appliance manual.
Yeah.
Not that there aren't some people that get pretty friggin' detailed things that happen to them and pretty crisp and clear things, but I feel like the mess is a part of the process.
Yes.
Right.
No mud, no lotus, my friend. So, what are you holding space for right now?
Oh gosh. One of the things that I'm holding space for is wholeness for myself and for us as a collective, just recognizing how much generational trauma has become this landslide of like, it's like an oil change that never happened. And so you get like gunk. And then at some point you got to replace the car, except we're not replacing the car. Like we got to figure out how to get this gunk out. I feel like for the collective, that's a really big part of what I'm holding space for people to recognize that the way that they're acting and reacting can be coming from trauma. Sometimes it's not theirs. Sometimes it's in the like collective soma. Yeah. And sometimes it's from the people who raised them, patterns that were unexamined that they're just repeating and playing out. And I turn 41 next month. So I'm also holding space for my wholeness. I feel there's this really beautiful next layer of power and like pleasure and strength, like physical strength. So I just feel this symmetry between the collective and the individual, my individual experience, like really holding space for wholeness. Can you feel the energy?
I sure can. And I'm sitting here going, welcome to your 40s, because I'm 48 this year and I'm all, yes, like there is something so ecstatically glorious about being in your 40s. I am so thrilled for you that you are there. And I'm thrilled for the collective that you're like seeing it. Also, one of the things that really came up when you were talking about generational trauma is also, I think the healing of the trauma is important. And I really hope, like, this is the thing that keeps coming in for me, is this idea of generational strength. Like we would not be sitting here had our ancestors not powered through. Like had my great-great-grandmother not instilled in my great-grandmother the capacity for thriving, not just surviving, but literally thriving. And my first guest in this Tiny Bits of Love series happened to be my mother, because I thought, let's introduce the world to Tina Larson for a minute. And we talked about my dad's suicide, actually, when we were talking, because that was the pain that grew my mom the most. And we'll get to that in a minute. But we were talking about what it did was it spurred this conversation that my mother had never thought about how my dad is also Indigenous. Ironic. Like my mother had never, until that conversation, put together that my dad's pain may or may not have been related to the fact that he was an Indigenous person until a couple weeks ago. And I think that also speaks to what you're talking about as we're holding space for the collective, this healing that is taking place and this awareness that is rising, that even when it's so obviously in front of us, we still don't see it.
Yeah, it's so big. And it's not on the map for people. It's not even like a known unknown. it's an unknown unknown. So you don't even know that you don't know it. And I want to I want to explain that. So, because this is something that I didn't know, and I'm wondering if maybe there's someone out there listening that doesn't know it too. When I first was introduced to the concept of the ancestors, I dismissed it immediately because I thought, well, you need to have a really strong relationship with your family of origin in order to want to connect to your ancestors.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I want to speak to any people that might be having that same reaction, because you can go far back. You can go hundreds of years back. You can go thousands of years back. You can go as far back as you need to in order to find the people that are vibrant and well, that remember that were in a space where they practiced remembering that they were children of the stars and that we were all connected and that you could see the land and that we were meant to be with one another in a good way. So just taking a moment to like explain, if the idea of an ancestral practice or connecting with the ancestors immediately makes you think of, well, I didn't really like my grandma Sophie, it doesn't have to be that way. It can be a much, much bigger picture. I feel like that's an unspoken part of the rupture, the curse of colonialism and the curse of white supremacy is taking the web of life and breaking it so that you might be in a space where you don't realize that the people that came before you loved you, even if they didn't know who you were, and the people that come next honor you, even if you don't have children. It's really big for me. So I'm just take a moment and just kind of ground myself.
You're okay. You're okay.
Whew, it's a lot. It's so big. This planet has so much beauty and so much casual brutality. And I feel like recognizing the ancestral strengths and the ancestral wisdom is like a huge part of the repair framework. So thank you for speaking that. So I think
it is. And I was just talking to my friend Crystal Walker, who's like one of my most favorite people on the planet, earlier before I was talking to you. And she asked this question. One of the things she's been asking the people she's working with is, how can I be a better human being on a daily basis? Not just like, when we were talking about racial justice and white supremacy, and it was this conversation about, well, I know what you're against. Like, I understand that you are against racism and white supremacy, but how are you here being a better human being on a daily basis? And I was like, yes. Why aren't we asking that question? Like, why aren't we asking the question, but what are you for?
Yeah.
Because that shifts us out of trauma and pain and suffering and into, how can I engage with love? Which is really the theme of all of this, is this conversation of, okay, well, I know I'm against homelessness, right? Like, I know that I see homeless people. And as our darling friend Karen said, like, we've MLM'd the economy and it's getting worse by the minute. So how can people be engaged by, or changed by, engaging with love and thinking about what we are for?
Yeah, it's so big. I'm going to take a moment because I feel like that question actually needs to settle, like through us into the ground, like water, like moving through the earth. It feels so deep and so important. So I'm so glad you.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
Oh. There's a way that I think when the energy reaches outward first, it's always ungrounded. And a lot of the conversations around, I'm not even going to say healing or repair, but I think fixing, a lot of the conversations around fixing have been outward first. And one of the things that my guides have been yelling at me, not yelling, like electric blue font, like very, very large font, that is, always include yourself in what you're offering to other people.
Ooh.
Right? Like, shit. And it's something that I like really have struggled with, continue to struggle with, continue to get better at. And I think that there's a way that when we want to make the world a better place and make the world a kinder place, if we do that using like harsh mechanisms against ourselves to like boomerang out into the world, we're already positioning ourselves for a problem. Like self-kindness and self-love, and also like presence with the self. Yeah, because if we don't acknowledge ourselves as a part of the web of life, then like reaching out to repair becomes like a superficial, artificial thing. It's really big.
So one of the things that I was telling you earlier, that I was in North Carolina in a vortex, like in a portal, standing on the granite, just looking at the granite, right? Like thinking, fuck, this shit's old. Like I'm holding these rocks in my hand, that because I'm a rock person, so I like go up the speaking of crystals under the ocean, but I'm like, I go up the I have a whole tray of them over here. Like my suitcase was so heavy because I was like, oh, it's so shiny, oh, it's so pretty, oh, thank you, right? And I'm putting them in my bra, and like I got like my stretch pants with the pockets. Thank God they finally started making spandex with pockets in it, right? Like I'm just like, and Susie's like, are you okay? I'm like, I got rocks. Like this, yeah. But so like, one of the things that really struck me as I was talking about the graceful revolution with Susie, and I was talking about this vision that was given to me by my guides and by my people and by my spirit was a return to the natural state of being. So when we strive for perfection, we get out of alignment with our natural state as humans. We are of the earth. We are of the air. We are of the fire. We are of the water. We are intricately connected. And the minute you just talked about the web of life and that connection, perfection, professionalism, which is like the most racist term on the planet, like when we start to think about how we are connected in our natural state of being, and we start to dismantle the idea of perfection, because nature and the web is naturally imperfect. We literally don't even stitch together evenly in the womb. Like, if we all listen to our Mother Earth, what kind of healing could take place if we just listen to the fact that we are connected to the big mama?
Yeah. Amen.
What do you think would happen if we just listened to the earth? Like if we put our head down and listened?
So in my mind's eye, I see a deflated balloon. And the question, what do you think would happen? I see like this expansion of the balloon. So I think of what my guides are sharing through that is like, there's this vision that can't occur unless we give it space. We have to give it oxygen. We have to give it space. We have to give it oxygen. I think that's a part of why the efforts to repair are so surface level right now, is because there's a failure of vision. Like what's the opposite of white supremacy? Like it's not just equity, it's interdependence. It's
connection.
It's like the sacred, and recognizing the sacred in all of us, and really like coming back to I can go on and on, like the elimination of perfection. Like what's the opposite? It's not just like satisficing, or something like that, being satisfied. It's everyone has something so brilliant that they uniquely bring, and we each all have our own thing. Like there can be this beautiful way that we connect with one another, and it's I see this expansion of vision. I love that question. Like this balloon that's deflated, that's ready to just rise.
Can you imagine everyone recognizing our unique, like that divine assignment in each of us? 7 billion different people, like recognizing their uniqueness. That's so lovely.
Yeah.
Whew.
I'm thinking of all the relationships that would shift so fundamentally if people loved themselves on a deeper level so that they could love other people to that same depth. Like,
Yeah. Um, what happens when we deny our spiritual connection to the divine? You know, one of the things I was really wrestling with recently was me using the word God, because I love the word God. Like, I love God. I love God. And I love the how the pain that grew me the most is actually connected to finding my version of God and what that looks like. But the word God, of course, is so loaded for so many people. And then if you throw Jesus in, really, people really freak out about that, right? But what do you think happens when we deny our spiritual connection to the divine, whether we call it universe, spirit, center, creator, God? Like, what do you think happens?
well, first we destroy ourselves, and then we destroy our relationship with one another, and then we destroy the world around us. And that's exactly what's happened. I feel like I feel like it's so clear how it's moved outward, like from the individual to the community, to the collective, to the planet. And I don't have any expectations about what a relationship with spirit or the divine needs to look like. I feel like it could be super straightforward, like really simple and really like tailored to the individual. I've never been a church person. I wasn't raised a church person, but I feel like this incredibly intimate connection with the divine. And I just see how not being able to recognize like one's own depths and divinity like creates this landslide of like caustic acid that like rolls from us and then out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. What is the pain that, so I was talking to my friend Stephanie Zong about the pain that grew you the most. And we were talking about how we have these moments that just really, like you were just saying earlier about this balloon, like giving it space. And I feel like sometimes grief and pain really causes that kind of growth, right? If we allow the space for grief and pain, then we allow the space for growing. So what is the pain that grew you the most, that connected you the most with love and the divine?
So I mentioned that at the beginning that I was a national security staffer and left the government in 2016. So it's been a hot minute since I've done that, even though it still feels like both really close and far away.
Like yesterday?
Yeah, it's so weird. I'm like, oh my God, you know, all these experiences, like, and a part of how I got here was that I spent 6 months in Afghanistan. I was never in the military, but I supported the military, did work for the Department of Defense. And one of the ways that you can define trauma is too much too soon. And when I came back, one of my coworkers, very well-intentioned person, you know how this can go, asked me what was wrong. And they asked if I had gotten into an accident, because in their mind, they were the paradigm that they were operating under was if you had been in an explosion, even though you were in a war zone, if you had been in an explosion, if there had been some specific event, that would make it make sense why things weren't okay. It didn't matter that I was wandering through sniper zones. It didn't matter that there were rocket attacks all the time, or you know, suicide bombers or IEDs or mortar attacks. Like, if there was a specific event that I could pin it down to, or you know, like a vehicle that I'd been in was exploded, then all of it would make sense. And her inability to understand why there might be something wrong outside of that sort of event,
right?
It's almost like a trash compactor, like, or you know, like a recycling machine, and they like push it down and make it as small as possible. Every hard, terrible thing that I was feeling inside of me became the size of like a pin when she said that.
Mm.
And so it was not only was I feeling those things, but there was no justification for it that was worthy.
Yeah.
And so then everything like further like imploded inside of me. That was definitely an experience of going to Afghanistan, coming back and not having a community to hold me, to a community of people to belong to that understood what was going on.
Yeah.
Absolutely took all of the oxygen out of my world, and created space for the transformation that I went through to get here today. So I'm very grateful that past me made it through.
Yeah, I think it's such an important thing what you're talking about, because one of the things that you and I talked about that actually brought me, like before we started the series and everything, was like the idea of dehumanization of pain and suffering, right? And also how we define what you have to go through to experience trauma, right? I've seen this with my husband, who is a veteran and was in Iraq and also in Kosovo. And he was in Kosovo when he was 19. So like his capacity for like dealing with anything, was minimal. Because he was so young, right? Like his brain's still developing, like, but one of the things that I've seen him really wrestle with, I wouldn't say struggle, but he really wrestles with it, is his experiences. One of the things he has said to me is, well, I didn't see what my other colleagues said, so I don't know why I'm so traumatized, right? Like his trauma comes from surely death, but it's a different experience than people who are on the front lines, for example, who were there in the very beginning, right? And I think it's what you're speaking to. And this is why I think love is so important, not romantic love, not, the love that we typically talk about, but the universal capacity to call in something so much greater than us, to hold us in those moments when all of the oxygen leaves, even if it's for one breath. This universal love that is so readily accessible and so denied because it doesn't fit within those parameters that we deem it to be appropriate.
Yeah.
And that when we dehumanize others to justify our own discomfort. So the way I had written this question was, how have you seen people dehumanize others to justify shitty behavior? But I think that the real question is, how does dehumanization play a role in making us feel better with discomfort?
Oh goodness. And I feel like it's really important to specify that, like, and when I say things like we or you, I'm talking about the royal, like
The
we start with ourselves.
Yeah.
We start with ourselves. I have to imagine that there are, based on my experiences with interacting with other people and with coaching people, that there are a lot of folks that grew up in homes where emotions weren't welcome, or emotions weren't named, or there was some sort of dynamic where if you confessed to being anything other than operating like on logic, that you were criticized for being fragile. And these are unwell states of being. To be in a place where you think you can act logically, like what we know about the brain, what we know about our subconscious. You can try, but we're very emotionally driven, and acting like that's not the case is denying a part of ourselves. Yeah. In the quest of what, like perfectionism, logic, colonial cues for value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
big stuff. Just, keep, and just anyone watching this, just like keep breathing.
30 minutes, it's just like,
yeah, it's so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for just holding space for this incredibly beautiful conversation. I've been so grateful to be having these conversations and just be exploring these ideas of love and spirit and connection. And I just love where this is going to go, because I can see the little tendrils going out and like reaching just the right people, right?
I feel it too. It's like the Mandalorian. It's the way. This is the way.
It is the way. Before we go, I have one surprise question that I've been asking everybody at the end of our time together. If you could have anything to eat right now in the whole world, what would you eat?
I don't know why I want to say chocolate cake. I had this like really delicious breakfast earlier. Are you a food dancer? I'm a food dancer. When I eat good food, I'm like,
oh yeah. I talk to my coffee. I'm like, I love you. You're amazing. Thank you. Yeah. No, I sing my food all the time. Yeah.
I'm making little noises and like, yeah. I don't know why chocolate cake is coming to mind. I don't actually have an urge to eat chocolate cake. I'm like, maybe we could like sit and have a nice cup of tea, somewhere.
Some chocolate cake
in the middle. Yeah. And have some chocolate cake.
Let's do it. I think that's perfect.
Good. That sounds good. I
love it. If people want to know more about you or follow you, where's the best place for people to get in touch with you?
I have a private account where I hang out on Instagram, and that's Your Sacred Craft. And that is the best place. I have links that people can click on my website, and they can see whether or not they like my brand of weird, because it's pretty specific. Practical.
It's amazing.
Ditto.
I love it.
Thanks so much for being a leader in the world and just spreading the love like confetti. It really makes a difference. I see you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I just am so grateful for you being here. Thank you. Hang tight for just a second. For those of you who are watching this later, I am Dr. Melissa Bird, and you can find me at naturalbornrebel.com. And if you are interested in the art of the graceful revolution and how you can disrupt your inner perfectionist in order to heal and grieve and transform your life, check out my work at naturalbornrebel.com and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at birdgirl1001. Thanks again, Steph.